Story 1. Andrei Chikatilo was a Soviet serial killer who lured young people, got them drunk, then raped and murdered them. He had 52 proven victims. Story 2. Dean Corll convinced two teenage boys to bring their friends and other boys from the neighborhood to his apartment under the guise of drinking beer and smoking marijuana. He would tie them up, rape, and sexually torture them, sometimes for days before killing them. Eventually, he turned on his teenage accomplices, and one of them shot and killed him. Both are still in prison. He killed, I believe, 14 boys, but the police stopped searching after that. There could be more victims. Story 3. Toy box killer was very sadistic. The details are horrific. Story 4. Pedro Lopez is a dangerous criminal who raped and murdered over 300 children and indigenous people. His release from custody for good behavior is concerning and does not imply that he is innocent or misunderstood. Story 5. Robert Ben Rhodes killed my dad before I ever got to meet him. It is believed he has the highest total kill count of any serial killer, as he drove all around the country on interstate highways as a truck driver. He had a makeshift torture chamber behind the bench seat in the cab of his truck. Authorities have no idea how many he killed because he drove from coast to coast on various highways. Story 6. Dean Corll used to insert glass tubes in people's genitalia, then repeatedly kick them in the groin. This is the kind of cruelty that would shock even the darkest forces. Story 7. I cannot even hear about Richard Ramirez, but the worst I know of and wish I did not is the duo of Charles Ng and Leonard Lake. Story 8. Dr. Harold Shipman was a general practitioner who killed an estimated 250 victims. He was supposed to help people but instead killed them with morphine overdoses. The true number of victims may never be known. Story 9. Dennis Rader, the bind, torture, kill killer. He picked his own name, with the initials standing for bind, torture, kill. He was married and had 2 children. His daughter claimed a normal upbringing. He was a Cub Scout leader and council president at his church, an all-around nice guy, I'm sure. Honestly, no one looks as evil as Richard Ramirez. Story 10. Pedro Lopez has 110 confirmed kills, the vast majority of whom were children. He served 14 years in prison but was released in 1994. He disappeared in 1999 and has not been seen since. He is one of the most prolific serial killers in history, possibly the most prolific, as he is accused of 300 murders. No one knows where he is. Story 11. Maybe Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer. We do not have a final count yet. His killing blueprint is so sick and evil it made my stomach turn. Story 12. Honestly, I think it is probably Harold Shipman here in the United Kingdom. He killed over 200 vulnerable, trusting people. The reason I think he is particularly evil is that he abused a position of trust. He was a general practitioner and would often kill people, then alter their will to steal from their estate. He was not mad or violent. He was casual, and I think that somehow makes it worse. Story 13. William Picton fed his victims to his pigs, so there was no evidence left. His victim count was in the 60s, if I remember correctly. Story 14. The toy box killer David Parker Ray. Although never officially charged with murder, he is estimated to have killed at least 60 women, with his victims likely numbering in the hundreds. He built a trailer specifically for torture, known as his toy box, where he kept women for up to 3 months, torturing them daily. He included one of his wives, his daughter, and even his male dogs in the sexual torture. He played a 5-minute recorded tape to these women when they were captured, outlining what they would have to endure for weeks or months. Story 15. We will likely never know. Throughout human history, countless psychopathic individuals have lived among us in various cultures and centuries. The worst of them likely never got caught or even suspected. Story 16. Vancouver has had 2 of the worst criminals. Robert Picton tortured and murdered 49 women and then fed them to his pigs. Clifford Olson was a monster. He raped, tortured, and killed 11 children. Story 17. Moses Sithole was a South African manager of the organization Youth Against Human Abuse, which supposedly helps people against child abuse. He killed and raped between 38 to 76 people. Most of the victims were women and children who came for an interview to get a job in the organization. He would call the families of the victims to taunt them afterward. Story 18, Fred and Rose West. It amazes me that these two are never mentioned earlier in these discussions. Story 19. John Wayne Gacy killed many boys and raped them. When he was on death row and about to die, he told the families that he had no remorse. Story 20. Surprised no one has mentioned the duo of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. It is absolutely insane what those two did. Spoiler: Carla is free and works with children. Multiple victims were children, including Carla's own sister. Story 21. While usually not labeled as serial killers, it has to be either Joseph Mengele or someone at Unit 731. The atrocities they committed and the number of victims far exceed anything any regular serial killer could even imagine. The only distinction is that they found governments depraved enough to let them operate openly. Story 22. There may be a new contender in real time. 19 bodies have been found in a lake so far in Texas. It is not confirmed if they are being consumed by wildlife. Story 23. Israel Keene was lucky he got greedy because they would never have caught him otherwise. Story 24. Donald Harvey claimed to have killed 87 people from 1970 to 1987, but only 37 have been confirmed to have been his doing. He was a hospital orderly who described himself as an angel of death. Story 25. Ed Gein had to be the gnarliest. In his house in Wisconsin, they found whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chairs, skulls on his bedposts, female skulls, some with the tops sawn off, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso skinned from shoulders to waist, leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from the skin of female heads, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Worden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Worden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gaines' potbelly stove, 9 vulvas in a shoebox, a young girl's dress and the vulvas of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old, a belt made from female human nipples, for noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, fingernails from female fingers. Story 26. Marc Detrue was a Belgian child sex trafficker connected to the elite and a serial killer. He killed 2 young girls by immurement. This case is a real rabbit hole, with people connected to it committing suicide or having fatal accidents, and possible ties to the ruling classes in Belgium. Story 27. Andre Chikatilo murdered more than 50 people, especially very young boys and girls. Story 28. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, confessed to killing 49 women. There is a documentary on the Max streaming service that is quite intense. Story 29. H.H. Holmes, who admitted to killing 27 people, was only confirmed to have killed 8. He murdered his victims, stripped the flesh off their bodies, and sold the skeletons to medical schools. He not only managed to get rid of the evidence but also made money from them. The more you read about him, the worse he gets. Story 30. I am going to say Bundy because when he escaped, he immediately did it again. Seeing the picture of the skull of the woman he murdered was just wow. Story 31. The person who is a trooper and still working for the Washington State Patrol might be upset if I say which one. Story 32. The freeway killer told the victim's mother that her son was his favorite because he was such a screamer. Story 33. H. Holmes and his murder castle. He claimed 27 victims, but the real number is estimated to be close to 200. Story 34. I would not say the most evil in history, but I want to introduce the public to this individual, Alexander Pichushkin, also known as the chessboard killer. Look at his face in the Wikipedia article. He shows absolutely no remorse or care for anyone but himself. A vile creature. Story 35. Extremely unpopular opinion. Brian Koberger. If he had not been caught the way he killed those poor kids, I feel he would have kept going. Just imagine what else he could have done. Story 36. The Truth or Consequences Killer. Nobody knows how many people he, his wife, and numerous friends were involved, including local police officers who helped cover it up. Story 37. William Bonin is definitely one of the most evil serial killers in California history. He is certainly the most sadistic. Story 38. I do not know if they have been mentioned, but the Dnepropetrovsk maniacs. While their kill counts were not as high as many mentioned here, what set them apart was that they would film their victims bleeding out as they slowly tortured them. The videos of the events even leaked online before, and it was disgusting how they would laugh as people were slowly dying or continue to purposely torture them for fun. I think they even killed a pregnant woman, and you can imagine how that went. Going off memory, though, Story 39, Leonard Lake. Why did his ex-wife get away? She took evidence before the police could collect it, leaving many families with no way of knowing where their loved ones ended up. He was a serial killer. Story 40. Laird Patrocinio Orpinelli would lure little children to secluded places with promises of candy, then rape, torture, and kill them. He would also befriend the parents to gain the children's trust. The police did not investigate because the children came from poor families. One day, the local police chief was replaced by a female officer, and she decided to investigate. It did not take long to catch him. Story 41. Herman Webster Mudgett, known as H. Holmes, is allegedly America's first serial killer. He rigged his house to dispose of the bodies. Story 42. My father-in-law worked in San Quentin for many years, and he said Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, was the most evil person he ever encountered. He said that just talking to him, you could see the evil in his eyes. Story 43. That one man who shot too many infected bodies over the walls of Kaffa in 1347 had an incredible number of assists. Story 44. Remember when Donald Trump let 1 million Americans die from coronavirus disease 2019 because he was too stupid to actually do anything about it? You know, he offered bleach as an idea. Story 45. Surprised nobody mentioned Kermit Gosnell. He was an abortion doctor who performed illegal late-term unsafe abortions at his clinic. He worked as a doctor for several decades and was confirmed to have 48 or more victims, with his staff collaborating that the total number of victims reached at least 300. It is a rabbit hole of horribleness and extremely disturbing facts that will make even the most stoic person feel revulsion and disgust. Story 46. Herman Webster Mudgett, known as H. Holmes, was America's first serial killer. He built a hotel specifically designed to lure victims. Story 47. Not gonna lie, after reading some of these, I don't know how there are still debates about whether the death penalty should be illegal. I guess maybe it is because many accidents could happen to people who later may be proven innocent. But if people are genuinely proven guilty and show no remorse, guilt, or will to change, what stops people from thinking the death penalty is unjustified? Story 48. It is always surprising to me that the most dangerous serial killers are the ones no one knows about and who are still at large. Story 49. Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, Ulysses S. Grant, and Benjamin Harrison are collectively responsible for the rape, massacre, and murder of hundreds of thousands of indigenous Native American men, women, and children in war and relocation actions. 2 million Africans died during transportation and enslavement. Of the 4 million enslaved African Americans, many young black girls were raped, so that by 1860, 10% of the black population were of mixed light skin, often called mulatto. In some southern states, the percentage was higher due to widespread interracial sexual coercion and rape. Countless black girls disappeared without a trace from farms and while traveling. Through the 1970s, many African Americans with lighter skin color had this ancestry due to sexual violence by white men. This was long before the crimes of Ted Bundy. The scale and impact were not comparable. Story 50. Albert Fish. That Wikipedia page is the most horrific thing I have ever read, and I have read some pretty horrific things. Story 51. William Bonin committed serious crimes. If you have a strong stomach, research his case. His entry in the Big Book of Serial Killers by Jack Rosewood spans 7 pages. This book is large and comprehensive, a fantastic read. Story 52. Robert Willie Picton was a wealthy pig farmer who killed 50 prostitutes, possibly more, and fed them to his pigs. Story 53. Randy Kraft was convicted of 16 murders of young boys and men. Based on a scorecard, he is believed to have killed over 67. He pounded wooden stakes into their anus, burned them all over with a car cigarette lighter, shoved pens and glass into their penises, and crushed them while they were still alive. Story 54. Monster of the Andes, he confessed to the murder of more than 300 child victims across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Story 55. This involves Paul Bernardo and Carla Hamalka, known as the Ken and Barbie killers. Paul was the Scarborough rapist, while Carla enabled him and killed her own sister after they drugged and raped her together. The worst part of it all was Paul's terrible music as an aspiring rapper. Story 56. Robert Christian Bose Hansen, also known as the Butcher Baker, was an American serial killer active in Anchorage, Alaska, between 1972 and 1983. He abducted, raped, and murdered at least 17 women. Many of his victims were released into the wilderness and hunted with a Ruger Mini 14 rifle and hunting knives. Hansen was captured in 1983 and sentenced to 461 years imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He died in 2014 of natural causes at age 75. Story 57. Albert Fish once raped, killed, and ate a very young girl. He then wrote a letter to the mother, complimenting her on producing a child with delicious and succulent meat. This is just a small example of the horrific acts he committed. Story 58. Pedro Lopez has at least 110 confirmed rapes and murders of young women and little girls, and claimed to have killed over 300. The most disturbing part is that he was not executed or given a life sentence for his crimes. He was released from an Ecuadorian prison after only 16 years. He was last seen in September of 1999. Story 59. Peter Curtin has to be up there. Even his head is on display at the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. Story 60. Harold Shipman, unlike every other serial killer I have read about who had deep traumatic issues, including upbringing abuse and neglect, did not. He simply murdered for the sake of it. Story 61. Harold Shipman was a trusted family doctor who murdered over 250 people. There is a Netflix documentary about him. Story 62. Gilles de Montmorency Laval, Lord of Rice, is my equal top vote. He fought beside Jeanne d'Arc but later practiced alchemy and attempted to summon demons using child sacrifices. Countess Elizabeth Bathory is my other top vote. She is believed to have killed up to 600 young serving girls and bathed in their blood to keep her skin fresh and youthful. The Hungarian king sent Georgi Thurzo to investigate. From 1601 to 1611, Thurzo and his team collected testimony from nearly 300 witnesses. Bathory was accused of luring young peasant girls, most between 10 and 14 years old, under the pretense of employing them as servants. Instead, they were beaten, burned, tortured, and murdered. Witnesses claimed Bathory drained her victims of their blood to bathe in it, believing it would keep her skin soft and supple. Some also hinted that she engaged in cannibalism. Thurzo went to Cactus Castle and found a dead victim on the premises, as well as others who were imprisoned and dying. He arrested Bathory, but because of her social standing, a trial would have caused a major scandal. Her family convinced Thurzo to let her live under house arrest in her castle, where she was walled into her rooms alone. She remained in solitary confinement there until her death. Story 63. A bit off topic, but every now and then pictures pop up on my YouTube. They appear to be friendly looking, not out of place on a dating site. They are all on death row, having done terrible things. This just goes to show how looks can give us a false sense of trust. Story 64. One construction business owner won a bid to build a building for Donald Trump. Donald Trump refused to pay. The business owner took Donald Trump to court. Donald Trump only paid half of what he owed. The business owner wrote checks to everyone he owed and then died by suicide. We are talking about over $1 million owed that was not paid. And that is just one person. If you look into Donald Trump's life, many people have died because of him. Story 65. Trump and the Republican Party are denying women in the United States basic medical assistance because it goes against their beliefs. At the same time, medical exemptions are granted whenever a Republican politician needs an abortion for convenience. Story 66. Epstein. Hello. Diddy. All these sick individuals would be living their picket fence dreams even if we expose them. Story 67. A certain Austrian gentleman with a distinctive mustache, very poor at painting, who implements industrialized systems for killing. Story 68. Tough question. Obviously, everyone else is mentioning lone killers. I believe that the worst ever gained power and made his killings a policy. Adolf Hitler. Story 69. All of them are politicians. I will not name names. They did not kill anyone using their own hands, but that does not mean they are not serial killers. Story 70. Probably some random judge or slave owner. I remember something about a widow who had a ton of corpses found under her house years after she moved. The basic point is that it was not someone who was ever caught but was allowed to continue for years. Story 71. Margaret Sanger. No military tyrant or despot in the world has killed more people than Planned Parenthood. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.